Hey 12, it's the Seahawks Squad. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
They're not all equal, 12s. They're not all equal, and some losses hurt a little bit more. And maybe I'm just a prisoner of the moment, but this one hurts a little bit. Seahawks lose 38-35. They fall to 3-2 on the season. Welcome to the Seahawks Squad Show. My name is Chris Crawford. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Anders Hurst, our normal host, he'll be joining us in a little bit. He is making the trek from Lumen Field to T-Mobile Park. Apparently, there's another event that's happening today. Nobody really told me what was going on, but might be some people paying attention to that. But in the meantime, we have a Seahawk game. That was a terrific football game, but ultimately ends up with a loss. I am joined, as always, by my good friend Rob Rang and former Seahawk Robert Turman. Gentlemen, real quick, how's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, doing great.
Good. Lots to talk about in this game, and we will go over a pretty terrific offensive effort, especially in the second half, a less than spectacular defensive game, and also the final minute, and just so much that happens in that final minute. But first, I'll have you, Turbo, first. Your overall thoughts of today's game.
I thought it was a good game. I really did. That was a good game from both sides of the football. I thought special teams did well. Also, you got to give credit to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, they're a good opponent, and they're a good team in the NFL for a reason. What's up, Anders?
How we doing, gentlemen? Good to see you.
Hey, you made it over. Good to see you. We're just getting started.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm a few minutes late, but appreciate y'all waiting for me. Thank you.
No worries. I was just giving my overall thought to the game. But yeah, I thought it was a good game. I know that we when we look at it as a whole, and we're just coming off of it, right? And so it's like, man, things always look a little different when you slow the take down and you're able to evaluate from that standpoint. I know that we would like to have seen more, maybe from the defensive side of the football, but at the end of the day, when you're playing a Baker Mayfield-led football team, sure, the Bay Buccaneers are scoring points on everybody. So you kind of got to know what you're getting into. You're not going to go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and shut them down, okay, even when you're at home. So I thought the way that the Seahawks fought in this football game, kept themselves in it, kept coming back, kept fighting through adversity. I thought it was a really, really good game. Really unfortunate the way that it ended.
Right.
But I thought overall a really good contest.
Rob, your thoughts on today's game?
Well, I have to kind of echo what Turbo said. I mean, just about as entertaining of a football game as you possibly can imagine. I like Mike Macdonald. I like Todd Bowles, the Tampa Bay coach. I mean, I kind of love defensive battles. So in that way, it was certainly frustrating. But at the same time, it's like the great T.O. used to say, get your popcorn ready. I mean, that was as entertaining of a football game as you're possibly ever going to see. It was just so much fun just to see all the points being scored, all the deep throws, the Seattle's commitment to the running game against a team that had been, basically, every other opponent was really struggling to move Vita Vea and be able to run the ball consistently. And Seattle has, it was, I thought, very effective in their running game. Yeah, it was disappointing as far as the defensive side, as Turbo talked about. I thought that it was interesting to see Mike Macdonald start to be a little bit more aggressive, send some blitzers to try to get Baker Mayfield off of his spot. But, just kudos to both the quarterbacks, the offensive play callers as well, just for an aggressive game plan and the execution on both sides. For the victorious Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this case, and the Seahawks. I thought that it was a game that I think that was going to bring extra emotion because everybody was wearing the old jerseys and things like that, and it lived up to the hype. It was two heavyweights. That there was something personal between these two franchises, and it to me that was the most exciting element about it.
Andrews, you got a firsthand look at it. Your overall thoughts on what happened today?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really fully judge the defense considering how many people, especially in the secondary, that are going out in this game. And Baker Mayfield's a dog, man. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. He makes plays. He's a great leader. He has athleticism. He makes big throws. Like I've been a big proponent of Baker Mayfield for a long time, but seeing him make plays in person, like he did today, was really just kind of eye-opening. And like I always kind of thought him as kind of one of those average QBs that like did a lot with what he had. I think honestly, I'm starting to put him up in that upper tier, guys. And I realized, like, again, the Seahawks defense was shorthanded today. No, Nicky Manwari went out injured. Rick Woolen went out injured. You had no Julian Love. You had no Devin Witherspoon. But I mean, they had no Bucky Irving. They had no Mike Evans. So like, it's almost even in that sense. So seeing the plays that he was able to make, I was also very impressed with how Sam Darnold kind of went like toe for toe with Baker Mayfield today. JSN really impressed me.
Oh yeah.
But it's the defense, man. When you score 35 points, you should expect to win the game. Like that's a pretty simple thing to me. And I realize that you're shorthanded, but it's just the way it goes in the NFL and today's game. It's unfortunate, and there was a lot of plays that went the Seahawks' way today. Honestly, there were a couple roughing the passer calls against Tampa. There were a couple weird penalties here. There were a couple like kind of flukes where maybe Sam Darnold got away with throwing an interception here and there, and it finally came back to bite them in that last drive, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's just to me, this looks like a battle of two of the better NFC teams in 2025, and I don't think I take too much negative away from this game besides the actual result, personally.
Yeah, that's fair. And, you know, it's one of those things where there's a lot of what ifs for me. Like, what if you don't fall behind 13-0? We'll talk about the decision, the Jalen Milroe package, the decision there. Some questionable penalties for sure. Mostly they went Seattle's way, if we're being honest. And I think Anders brings up a good point there. But the big thing to me is falling down 13-0. And when you fall down 13-0, you know, you have to make so much effort to make that comeback. And I know there was plenty of time. It's just difficult. It's difficult when you fall down double digits in the NFL. You take a look at the stats. It's very uncommon for teams to win when they fall down by that much. I give them a ton of credit for getting back into this football game. I thought they were the better football team for the overwhelming majority of the second half. But ultimately, it's a bit of a moral victory, which is disappointing because if you get off to a little bit better start, maybe make some adjustments defensively that I thought that they didn't quite get to, maybe you end up with this win and you're 4-1. Turbo, losing a game like this, how frustrating is it on an offensive side to score that many points and not come up with a victory?
I don't think you really look at it from an offensive and a defensive standpoint because you're in it as a team. You know,
sure.
There's nights where during my years at Legion of Boom, you know, I mean, I go back to the playoff game against Aaron Rodgers where we recover the onside kick. Like,
sure.
You know, our offense, we weren't doing nothing. And our defense kind of kept them in it, you know, or kept us in it. So,
right.
You know, it's a team standpoint. I think just overall, it's a frustrating game because there's added elements to tonight. You know, you look at, first of all, we've been struggling at home for whatever reason now, pretty consistent. Right. That's number one. Number two, all the OGs are in town. I mean, Sean Alexander and Matt Hasselbeck and all of these, you know, guys who were in town to celebrate 50 years of being the Seattle Seahawks. It's a special opportunity, you know, for us as sort of the new kids on the block or the new era to, you know, leave these guys going home with a win, you know. And so that added element can be frustrating as well. But, you know, anytime you're at the house and you lose a close game like this, that was, you know, really in your hands, you know, at the end to win it with a field goal, it's heartbreaking.
Anders, since you were there, how was the crowd today? How was it? Because, you know, there's a lot going on in Seattle right now. Was this because I was really impressed with the crowd that we got in the opener, the Saints game as well. How was the crowd today?
Yeah, I bet because of the angle that it's on TV, it always shows the away side. TV angle. And yes, it looks like there might have been a lot of red/orange behind the away sideline. But if you look everywhere else in the stadium, it's all green and blue. It's all Seahawks. It was completely full. There was no empty seats. And the crowd was hyped in the moments it needed to be. But a lot of the times where they were, it felt like the defense couldn't come up with a play. And it was like very deflating at that point. And it ended up being like, all right, well, why are we even cheering at this point? Like, you got to give me something to cheer about, right? It's like, I don't know. For me, it's always been what comes first, the chicken or the egg. The crowd noise like helps the defense, but also the defense makes the crowd noise become more of a factor because you feel more confident in your defense and making plays in certain moments. And I think that's kind of what I feel about today is like the crowd showed up, and unfortunately, because of how easy it was for Tampa to move the ball down the field, by the time the end of the game came, it was like, all right, well, we kind of expect them to score here. And then whenever Sam Darnold threw that interception, it ends up being like, well, okay, kind of screwed now. So, I mean, I'm not blaming the crowd whatsoever, but I feel like it died out throughout the rest of the game personally. And that's been a common theme with the current Seahawks at this point.
Sure.
And it's tough. It's tough to say kind of how much of a factor that really would play, and if the defense were to maybe make a couple plays if momentum were to gather at that point, how much of a difference that would have made.
We're going to take a quick break. I want to start by talking about this offense because I want to start with the positive. You score 35 points against an NFL defense. You deserve to get praised. We'll talk about the other side of it as well, but I do think we should start with some optimism. We'll be right back on the Seahawks Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood. And I think that's one of those things that we don't pay enough attention to. We don't pay enough attention to the local business because they are the heart of the neighborhood. There's the places that they feel like an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, so many good ones in Seattle, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. So a little behind the scenes, we get a list of businesses that are attached to the Square program, and I loved so many, but I was super excited when I saw Simply Seattle was on here because Simply Seattle is that perfect definition of that local place, that place that adds to the community. Not only are they giving you a great product, but if you've talked to the people at Simply Seattle, you know how much they care and how much effort they put in to not only their product, but just making this community a better place. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, support your favorite neighborhood spot. You will be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. All right, welcome back to the Seahawks Show. Bring everybody back here. Rob, this offense, it was pretty darn good, especially in the second half today. Your overall thoughts on what you saw from the offense today?
Well, I think that you got to start with quarterback Sam Darnold. I thought that he was brilliant. Even the interception that winds up obviously being the reason why that Tampa Bay was in position to kick that game-winning field goal. As they talked about it on the broadcast, the ball basically hits off the helmet of a Tampa Bay defensive player and then winds up going into the hands of the future Hall of Fame linebacker Levante David. I thought the Sam Darnold was absolutely brilliant. Anders used the expression kind of went toe to toe, and I just love that kind of analogy. The idea of two heavyweight boxers, just trading haymakers at each other. To me, I would agree with what Anders said before about Baker Mayfield, that he is just a gunslinger, and he is just so inspirational with the way he played. And I thought that Sam Darnold was every bit as good. I love the fact that Darnold, on the touchdown throw to Torrey Horton, for example, that felt like that might be the dagger that put Seattle, basically put them in position to win this football game, that he had pressure in his face. It was fourth down. The Seahawks did go for it, and he is able to step out of that pressure, is able to throw a ball to Torrey Horton to get that touchdown. Of course, that was Sam Darnold's fourth touchdown throw of the game. He throws 2 to A.J. Barner, the tight end, who now I think he's got 4 touchdowns on the season so far. So if he's not leading all NFL tight ends in touchdowns a year after being second among rookies in tight ends to the All-Pro Brock Bowers, then he's got to be close. And then throws another, touchdown to Cooper Kupp, not Cooper Kupp, but to Torrey Horton, and then as well as Jackson Smith and Jigba. So, again, I think you have to focus in on that. And the fact that the Seahawks, again, I mentioned this before, but, everybody talks about how Seattle is struggling to run the ball. I mean, Seattle ran for 155 yards against the Arizona Cardinals on a short week a week ago, and then comes back in this game, runs for 120, I think it's 122 yards and a rushing touchdown. Again, against a defense that had been one of the best in all of the NFL. So while it's not always as consistent as you'd like, still, I love Seattle's willingness to just stick with the plan, run the football, and then obviously they've been able to, again, putting up 35 points against a defense as good as the Bucs is a statement in itself.
Turbo, this offense looked awfully good for the majority of the game. Just how impressed were you with Sam Darnold today?
Well, really impressed. The thing that continues to stick out to me when it comes to Sam Darnold is just his ability to make plays, extend plays, make plays outside of the pocket, use his feet to avoid pressure. I mean, he was impressive in that. Today, him and Baker Mayfield, man, were both going at it. I also like that analogy. Going toe to toe with one another in terms of, man, anything you can do, I can do better, kind of thing that was going on between the two quarterbacks today. But that's the most important or most impressive thing in terms of Sam Darnold and the way that he performed today. He didn't really panic in a whole lot of situations. He trusted his eyes and he was able to use his feet to be able to make plays. The thing that stuck out to me about this offense today was just balance. There was just balance everywhere. You had not only Sam Darnold playing at a high level, but then he was spreading the football around too, to everybody. You got Torrey Horton getting involved and Cooper Kupp getting involved and the tight ends, A.J. Barner getting involved. Both running backs were able to find success on the ground. It wasn't just Zach Charbonnet or Ken Walker. It was both of these guys going as a real nice 1-2 punch today. And to me, that's balance. And so from an offensive standpoint, that's the thing that stood out to me the most in today's game, was just the balance that they had both in throwing and the run game.
Anders, anything in particular stand out for Darnold for you today?
Well, I mean, when you have to score 5 straight drives, touchdowns in a row, I believe that's what happened, right? The stadium was hard for me to keep track of the box score. Scoring touchdowns in 5 straight drives at any point against any defense is incredibly impressive. And he had to do it because without that, the Seahawks aren't even in this game.
Yeah.
Now, you could say there was a little bit of question marks in the first 2 or 3 drives of the game. And you kind of mentioned that going down 13-0 as well. Maybe if you're not in the hole, if you kind of go toe for toe, like the analogy we've been talking about for the entire game, that you give yourself a little bit more buffer. But I mean, when you score 5 straight touchdowns, it's hard to really nitpick at anything. The offense did its job today. I think the running game was pretty impressive. Turbo points it out. Both guys, Charbonnet and Walker, were both great today. Having the 1-2 punches really, really effective. Sam Darnold made some crazy throws, man. Not just the 4th and 2 for the touchdown, but the previous one to Jackson Smith and Jigba. He had a tiny window for them into as well in the back of the end zone, and he made every throw he absolutely needed to today. So I was really impressed with him. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league, without a doubt, in the first 5 weeks of the season. It sucks the Seahawks are 3-2 with that kind of. You feel like you probably could have gotten 2 more wins from that. They could be 5-0 at this point. Looking at week 1 against the Niners, looking at this week against Tampa Bay, but those are 2 of the better teams in the NFC in the first 5 weeks of the season. So I don't take too much negative from that, especially considering how much how many players you had out. Turbo, you want to answer?
Well, the only negative that I'm taking from it right now, because I agree. I don't really take. It's just, especially when you mention the Niners and the Buccaneers. It's just, at some point, when will the Seahawks be the team that comes out on top in these types of games against the top team in the NFC?
Sure.
That's it. That's it. Because when it's against a middle of the road team or a lower tier team, and we get into these types of games, we find a way for Jason Myers to kick a field goal at the end and win it. But for whatever reason, when it's a top 2, 3, 4, 5 team in the NFC, we're on the other side of the spectrum.
Right.
And it like that even when Geno was here. So that's the only thing that just kind of irks me a little bit. It's just like, man, when are we going to get over that hump?
Right.
And be the team where we expect to be the ones who come out on top.
By the way, Turbo, I really thank you for reminding me that Jason Myers missed a field goal today, which would have been
Well, big deal, right?
Yeah, that's a huge deal. And by the way, I loved that they went for it on 4th and 2 on that play. You absolutely can't settle for field goals. You were not going to get the job done defensively, being just completely honest with you, to be able to hold a team to a field goal or not a score. So you have to go for the end zone there. I really like that decision making. Turbo, I thought the run game was as good as it's been as well. You end up with 122 yards on 20 carries. Really nice job, I think, by the offensive line. And in particular, I saw some holes in the middle of the line that I have not seen from the Seattle Seahawks in a while. How impressed were you with the run game?
Very impressed. The most impressive run, I think, came in the fourth quarter. It came in the fourth quarter. It was right before – it was on the drive. Sam Darnold threw the touchdown to Toy Horton. They give it to Ken Walker on a duo play, and he finds a little crease, and you just have flashbacks of Marshawn Lynch, moving the pile for 8 yards or whatever it was. I mean, that is – that's Seahawks football, man. That's Seahawks run game football right there. When everybody's in there, the tight ends, the offensive line, and everybody's just, pushing that pile forward, and everybody's got a hand in that. And then you saw guys crawling out of there, and and flexing, and that to me was sort of the I guess the staple of what the run game was in today's football game. And I thought. I thought Clint Kubiak did a nice job mixing it up. We had some edge runs and some inside runs, some toss plays, and we were unpredictable in what we were trying to do in our run scheme. And even when you knew we were going to run duo, we had the physicality up front to be able to push the pile and get those extra yardages. So I thought it was nice. It was great to see that thunder and lightning from Charbonnet and Ken Walker. So I was impressed with the run game today.
Rob, the burst I saw from Kenneth Walker, and we've certainly seen that burst at points this year, but I thought it was as good as it's been. How impressed were you with Kenneth Walker today?
Yeah, I thought he had a great game. Obviously, it was a poor pitch from Jalen Milroe on the fumble. I think that Kenneth Walker, I'd like to see him be able to kind of corral that ball as errant of a pitch as it was. But otherwise, I thought that he had a terrific game. I like the burst, as you mentioned, Chris. I mean, we've seen that before. I just like the vision. He's looking for those cutback lanes. And I think that he is being a little bit more selective in them. I think there's been times where he has just been so willing to try to dance or to try and cut back instead of just putting his head down and just driving his legs forward. I mean, this is a strong young man, as Turbo talked about in referencing that run that I think went for, 8 yards. And you're seeing tight ends like A.J. Barner, like Elijah Arroyo, a guy who is known more for his receiving skills than his run blocking, but really getting after it. And I want to give some credit to a group of players that don't often get credit when a running game is going, and that's the receivers blocking downfield. It's got some terrific downfield blocks from Cooper Kupp and JSN in particular. Jake Bobo has traditionally been one of those guys. He actually got called for a couple of holding penalties in this game. So again, if we're going to nitpick with some things on offense, I would just say there were some penalties there that were just procedural stuff, just, clean that kind of stuff up, because in a game that wound up being obviously as close as this one was, the Jason Myers missed field goal, some of the penalties there, just shooting yourself in the foot, the self-inflicted errors, I think loom pretty large. And otherwise, what it was, pretty masterful performance on the offensive side of the ball.
Anders, that pitch, oof, that was tough. And it's tough, especially because it's a gadget play, for lack of a better term there. How frustrating is that? Like, how frustrating is it? Like, you're watching the game, you're having a good time, you bring something in, see if you can get some razzle dazzle going, and then it ends up hurting you pretty badly.
Well, and first of all, I apologize for appearing like Casper the Friendly Ghost here.
That's okay.
As I'm live from T-Mobile Park.
It's a great classic, by the way.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm about 5 minutes from the sun being below the stadium, so I will be much more appealing to a lot of the audience.
Fair enough.
It's going on.
You look great.
You look fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, it's because that was the first real positive drive for the Seahawks, right? The first couple, it was kind of stumbling a little bit. It's like you go down 13-0, your defense creates 2 field goals in stopping them from getting in the end zone twice out of 3 times, and you have a chance to kind of go down and make it 13-7 and be right back in this game. And then all of a sudden, you decide, and Sam Darnold, I forget the play right before that, there was a big play. But he was dealing in that part of the game as he was all game, and all of a sudden you decide to bring in Jalen Murrow for an option play, and he just misses the toss to Kenneth Walker, and it's a total buzzkill. It's a total momentum killer, and unfortunately it puts you in a big hole at the end of the first quarter, early second quarter. To kind of get out of, and they end up getting out of it. They take the lead later in the game, but imagine if you had hadn't have had that big of a hole at that point in the game, you were able to make it 13-7. It's these little moments in the game. It's the Jason Myers missed field goal. It's the missed toss from Jalen Murrow that I really turn to in a game like this. We have a lot of injuries on defense. I realize when you give up 38 points, you don't expect to win a lot of games, but when you're as shorthanded as the Seahawks, it's these little things that are very avoidable that I point to in the reason why this is.
Well, please go ahead.
Because I actually tweeted after that play, and I if you guys follow me on Twitter, I barely say anything. So if I put something out on X,
smart man, honestly, smart man.
If I put something out, that means I actually have something to say.
Sure.
The play itself, I think, is fine. You could look at it either way. But for you, and you guys have played, you've been around the game a long time. The option is a very hard play in terms of timing and chemistry and rhythm with the back. You got to be in pitch relationship. You got to really be used to one another when you run, because the pitch can be quick. You might get up the field a little bit. You actually never know when it's going to happen. You can plan for it to happen right at the line of scrimmage. Doesn't always play out that way. And so that's where the pitch relationship comes into play, and understanding the speed of my quarterback and running back, etc. And so when you run a gadget play like that, that's an option. You want to help your quarterback out. So if you've ever run an option play before, quarterbacks, when they go to their dominant side, usually the pitch is much more smooth. They can pitch it a little further. Mm-hmm. When they go to their offhand, they need a few more extra reps with it, because it's like going for a left-hand layup when you're a right-handed player. And if you haven't had enough reps with that left hand, you're just not as dominant going that direction. And so I thought Clint Kubiak could have helped the play out a little bit and went with his dominant side. If you're going to run the speed option right there, run it to the right where he's more comfortable. He's a right-handed player. So run it to the right where he's more comfortable. What happened? The ball was behind Kenneth. Why? Right. Because that's not his dominant side. It's not his dominant side. So I thought that the play itself was okay, but you got to help Six out a little bit and go to his dominant side so you can get a better result. That's all. That was my first thought when I saw the play. I'm like, oh, right.
That's why we have you, man, because that's really insightful. And something I always go back to is putting people in position to succeed, and that's a tough position for a rookie quarterback who has not been in the game to succeed.
Yeah.
So that was,
what was it, just like third play of the season? What was it?
yeah, third or fourth, something along those lines. Yeah, that's asking an awful lot. And I guess the question mark would be, if you want him to be involved in those type of things, do you need to get him more reps in game so that those types of plays become a little bit more easier to succeed on? Like, because coming in cold like that and having to make a play like that seems like an awful lot to put on a rookie quarterback. All right. We talked about the positives with the offense with one little negative. Now we got to talk about the defense. And guys, I'll try to find a positive, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. We'll talk about it next on the Seahawks Squad Show. Thanks again for tuning in. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. These are the moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. Oh, there's so many guys I could pick for today. It's definitely on offense. I'll tell you that much. It's definitely an offensive player who has to be the guy who's moving that game forward. But I'm going to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba. I was just so impressed with what he did today, becoming that wide receiver one and then some, like a legitimate downfield threat, but also a guy who can get you the ball, make plays in the intermediate. Did a great job, as Rob brought up earlier in the episode, with a couple of blocks today. This guy is becoming a special football player, and it's been fun to watch. Yes, it comes in a loss, but you can't help but come away with impressed with what Jackson Smith-Njigba. And if you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. All right, we talked about that offense. Now we got to talk about the defense. And Rob, I'll start with you. Obviously, a lot of injuries that play a major factor in this thing. But you still give up 38 points. You really struggled to generate any type of pass rush. The middle of the field appeared to be wide open on the overwhelming majority of pass attempts. And then, you do have to tip your hat to Baker Mayfield, whose accuracy today was on the 20/80 scouting scale. That's an 80, right? Like, that is as accurate as I've seen a quarterback play in a while. How much of this is credit to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay scheme? How much of this is the Seahawks defense just not getting the job done?
I think certainly you have to give some credit to Baker Mayfield. I mean, if we're going to use that 20/80 thing, I think you got to give him 20% credit. He was just excellent. At the same time, I thought that Seattle's inability to create any type of consistent pass rush, especially on the perimeter, I thought was absolutely maddening in this football game. And the reality is Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a solid right tackle right now in Charlie Heck, but he is a backup for a reason. I really thought that was going to be an advantage for the Seahawks. Now, again, the injury to Derek Hall in this game slowed Seattle down. Obviously, they went into this football game with DeMarcus Lawrence, inactive. So again, they were kind of had one hand tied behind their back. But I thought this was going to be a prime matchup for Boye Mafe to really have a spectacular performance. He had a splashy tackle for loss, but there were multiple times in which he forced Baker Mayfield to step up into the pocket. But Mayfield is just so damn slippery that I really thought that Seattle was going to be able to kind of pen him in the way that they did Kyler Murray a week ago. And again, Baker Mayfield is able just to kind of keep his eyes up, whereas Kyler Murray's eyes sometimes drop down and try to just avoid the pass rushers instead of looking for the receivers. I mean, Mayfield, it felt like he was almost like a cat playing with the mouse. Like he was toying with Seattle's pass rushers. Yeah, come at me a little bit so I can just throw right over the top of you and just frustrate the hell out of you. So I know we're going to be kind of talking about some negatives here. I do want to mention one positive. There were on multiple occasions I saw the best player, in my opinion, for the Seahawks defense is Leonard Williams. And while he did have another, personal foul penalty and again, those are getting frustrating as well. I love the which he pursues laterally and downfield. And so that was one of the things I was impressed by. and frankly wanted to see a little bit more of that from some of Seattle's other defensive linemen. That I think that they should be. When you know that you're going to be going up against a team that's going to throw the ball as much as the Buccaneers are going to do, then they should be pursuing downfield, because those 300-pounders hitting those little receivers, that takes a toll on them. And I think that was one of the things that the Seattle could have done to try to physically wear down a Tampa Bay Buccaneers skill position group.
Turbo, I'll ask you a similar question. The Seahawks run defense today, 24 attempts for 56 yards, do go up 2 rushing touchdowns, but Rachaad White held under 3 yards a carry. Was this the Seahawks run defense being good, or was this a case of where the Buccaneers give up a little bit on the run game because they were so effective in the passing game?
I think a little bit of both. It sucks because you look at it statistically and it's just like, man, Seahawks really did great in the run game. But, I think it was 3rd and 7 in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
And you give up the big run to Rachaad White on the right side. Let's go.
Yeah.
You can't give up that right there, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, 3.5 yards per carry all game long. But the big run of the game, you gave up a first down. And so you look at things like that, and those are the frustrating pieces when it comes to, Seattle. Honestly, you look on the offensive side, the one interception, it's like, man, we've been going and going and going, and then boom, they get pressure with their front four.
Yep.
And they're able to just disrupt the timing, and the ball ricochets. It's an interception, and that's the difference. Even the touchdown play to Torrey Horton, where Sam Darnold obviously, made some, created some time with his feet. That was 4. That was 4 guys that Tampa Bay rushed with on that play. And had Sam Darnold not been able to make a play, who knows? That might have been a turnover on downs.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Consistently, Rob talked about it when we started the show. Mike McDonald started bringing more blitz in the second half, first and second down. Why? Yeah. Well, we're not getting much from the front four.
Right.
And if the dynamic wants to change defensively for the Seattle Seahawks, it's got to be about the front four being more consistent and putting pressure on the quarterback.
And there's a lot of injuries today, obviously, and not a lot of pressure from the front four puts a lot of pressure on that secondary. I think the guy the Seahawks missed the most today was Julian Love. And I think that today was a pretty darn good example of, number one, how good Julian Love is when he's on the field. And number two, that the depth behind Julian Love is less than spectacular. The secondary really struggled today, didn't it?
Well, and especially when there's no depth this week. And then you get Rick Rowland, who I know has been taking his shots throughout the majority of the season. But when he goes out injured and you're looking at me and my Pritchard as your starting quarterbacks, that's going to be an issue for a lot of them. Purple points out the 3rd and 7 Rachaad White run. I'm going to point out to an even earlier point in the game, 3rd and 14, and Baker Mayfield rushes for a first down. That can't happen, guys. It can't. And that's where the secondary – I'm in the stadium. It looked like they were playing man at that point. You guys maybe have a better view on that. If they were playing zone, that's just like view on the quarterback. He should not be getting for 16, 17 yards and third down when you need to stop them there. So there's just too many of those moments today. And I get it. You're shorthanded. So I am not taking this as a long-term view throughout the season. I think the Seahawks defense has been mostly good throughout the first 5 weeks of the season. It's been one of the strengths of this team. And it's just the reality of being as shorthanded as you were today. When you're out, you're number 1, number 2 corner, you're number 1 safety, and then eventually you're number 1 big nickel, however you want to categorize the Nicky Manwari as well. It's going to be a tough fix in those spots. That's 5 guys in your starting defense that just end up not playing by the end of the game. So it's a tough one for the Seahawks to kind of swallow. But I honestly don't mind the call from Mike McDonald to be a little bit more aggressive late in the game. Send some blitzes. What do you got to lose at this point? You got to make some plays. You got to get a stop at this point. So I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but if you're that shorthanded at that point, I don't mind a little more aggressive nature.
Rob, my issue, I think, was while I like those blitzes, I'm not a huge fan of blitzing that much and playing such soft coverage behind those guys, because you have a guy like Baker Mayfield who is become so good at reading defenses now too. Like, does such a good job of getting off first receiver, getting to those guys. Is it a mistake to have that many blitz packages and to be playing such a soft shell coverage as well?
I think that it ultimately wound up being a mistake. I think that you can, second guess, because obviously the hindsight's 2020, and the reality is just about nothing that Seattle tried defensively actually worked. Baker Mayfield and the offensive coordinator Grizzard did an unbelievable job of, I think, anticipating when Seattle might blitz. I mean, they had some very well-timed screens and, short little dump-off passes and things like that. The fact that, former University of Washington standout K-Dot and the tight end had, one of the best days of his NFL career in this particular game. I think that wasn't necessarily going to be the case until Seattle, again, started becoming more aggressive throughout this football game, because it was very clear, as Turbo said, that Seattle's inability to rush the quarterback with their front four, while Tampa Bay was having a great deal of effectiveness rushing with their front four, despite being on the road. To me, that was very surprising in this football game. And I do want to make sure that we kind of talk about just the impact, the loss of Tariq Woolen in this game. As Anders mentioned, Tariq Woolen, of course, has had so many different pass interference penalties and things like that. But the only touchdown that he had allowed so far, through the first 4 games of the NFL season, was the ultimate game winner that Jake Tongas, the tight end in San Francisco. But that's it. But once he went out, the Buccaneers smartly went right after Nehemiah Pritchett. He surrendered 2 touchdowns in this football game and multiple other receptions. And I am not in the defensive meetings, obviously, for the Seahawks, but I believe that Nehemiah Pritchett was one of the players that could have stepped up a little bit more to slow down that 3rd and 7 run that Rachaad White had to basically seal this football game. I mean, he certainly is kind of in a forced position, and so, again, you can criticize Seattle's edge rushers in that play, the linebackers, but I thought that the loss of Tariq Woolen, maybe he would have got victimized for some pass interferences, who knows? But the reality is that once he was off the field, then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers attacked that edge of the side of the field. And I really thought that not having Julian Love, I actually thought Ty Okada had a pretty damn good game, at least at times, and he made some big hits, had a couple of different pass breakups, but still, I thought that the lack of communication, I thought, showed up at times, and just frankly, the lack of speed. When you lose a guy like a Tariq Woolen and you don't have a Devin Witherspoon as instinctive and as physical as he is out there, along with Julian Love, again, you're getting pretty low in the barrel. And I think when you're playing against a quarterback who is playing as well as Baker Mayfield is, I think he's playing at an MVP level. And then Emeka Egbuka, you got to just kind of tip your cap to this young man. That's now 5 touchdowns in as many games, to start his NFL season. He's got to be the Offensive Rookie of the Year favorite right now. So again, I think that the Seahawks definitely took their lumps. The injuries played a part, but at the same time, you're playing against arguably the best offensive football right now too.
Shout out Stillicum High School. You made a terrible college choice. Actually, you made a great college choice. I wish you would have gone to UW, but you made the right choice, because I think Ohio State has developed a wide receiver or two. Turbo, when we were doing our preview shows, we kind of talked about the linebackers and some concern there. I thought that Ernest Jones was fine today. Tyrese Knight in coverage was not exactly balling, as the kids would say. How concerned should we be about that second linebacker position right now?
Very concerned, I think, to be honest, just because even with Ernest, I just don't believe you're getting the consistency there. I think that I'm trying to figure out the way to phrase it, but he's like it's like I don't know, like he's like a big bang type of play person, and then sort of is just kind of disappears. I don't know if he's a consistent impact player.
Sure.
And that could be troublesome, I think, for the Seahawks. And so you get that from Ernest Jones, then you get a little bit of a step down then from that with Tyrese Knight. And neither one of those guys are really great in coverage, if I'm being completely honest with you, in my opinion. And so there's no impact person in the middle of the defense. Ernest Jones gives you some impact sometimes, but an impact player is a guy that every game, JSN shows up.
Right.
He shows up every single time. Sam Darnold, he shows up. Like, there's certain guys that just show up every time. And it's like Ernest and this linebacker group, not so much. And so I would be concerned just because you don't get the consistent, impact. You don't get the consistent impact from that position.
Totally fair. All right. I want to talk about that last minute of the game, the final drive for the Seahawks, the final drive for the Buccaneers. Some frustrating stuff, to be sure, which is disappointing because there was a lot to like today, but ultimately moral victories, not so much. We'll take a look at them. Seahawks Squad Show coming right back. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, if you bet the over today, congratulations. You probably are having a pretty good day. And speaking of bets with FanDuel, right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's so many different ways to play. You can build parlays, you can try player props, or you can even follow the live lines during the game. That's a really fun one. Bet responsibly, but there's a lot of fun ways to have fun with FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show, joined by my good buddy Anders Hurst, Rob Rang, and of course, Robert Turbin. That final drive, and I'll start with you, Rob, the interception from Darnold, and the ball plunks off of Logan Hall's head. He's under duress. Is that bad throw? Is that bad luck? What is it? Just bad pass blocking? It's maybe a combination of all of them. Where would you ultimately side on that unfortunate turnover?
Yeah, I think it is just all of the above, basically. Sure. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad throw, but the fact that that this is the second time, Turbo talked about this a moment ago, like you're waiting for the Seahawks to be the team that wins a game at the very end. And so if I'm going to call it bad luck when Nick Bosa was able to kind of force the fumble that led to the Seahawks' first loss of the season, and then to not cast any blame, just bad luck that Sam Darnold has the ball, bounce off of a pass rusher's helmet, then that's not putting any blame on the quarterback. And as good as he's been, I think you have to put at least some blame on the quarterback. I mean, this is a 6'5" quarterback. If it was Baker Mayfield, if it was Russell Wilson, or Kyler Murray, a shorter quarterback, then I think that you have a little bit more of that excuse. I like the fact that he was trying to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Obviously, he's not going to want to take a sack there. And obviously, he's not anticipating that's what's going to happen. But at the same time, I think that he's got to be quicker. And I think that's one of the things that we have seen when Sam Darnold's operating well, then he really is making quick decisions. And I thought that for everybody out there who are the Sam Darnold critics, and the seeing ghosts kind of a thing, I think it's just so easy for them to kind of jump onto that kind of bandwagon again. And so I think that ultimately you have to, I think, put a little bit more of the spotlight on Seattle's interior offensive line. I thought that they played a pretty damn solid game against a formidable Tampa Bay defensive line. But again, this was a home game. You do have the advantage of the snap counts and things of that nature. I really thought that Seattle would be the team that would not dominate the line of scrimmage, but definitely get some sacks on Baker Mayfield. And I thought that they would be able to hold up better to the Tampa Bay pass rush. Tampa Bay didn't get a lot of sacks, but they got an awful lot of pressures on Darnold in this game.
Turbo, would you prefer that? And obviously hindsight is 2020, and maybe we have to take a look at the all 22 there. Do you prefer Darnold just to take the sack there in that situation, keep the drive alive? Or is that one where, you can't predict a ball bouncing off of Hall's helmet there and landing in the linebacker's arms?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to ask Sam to take a sack right there. He's been making plays all game long.
Sure.
The protection certainly could have been better. the thing that we're not looking at, from my vantage point, is the play calling. And, Coach Kubiak did a nice job all game long, right? But you're in complete control right now. All right, so you get the first pass, Cooper Kupp, boom, sideline, get out of bounds, stop the clock.
Yes.
We got all 3 timeouts. You can't mix a run in there.
Yeah.
I thought for sure when I'm watching him say, okay, we're inside zone is Jack Charbonnet right now. Boom. Why not?
Looking like a true running back.
Yes. No, but
I mean,
right.
maybe, but we've been mixing it up all game.
Right.
We're not in a rush.
No.
Press for time right now.
Yep.
We got all 3 timeouts. Let's keep this defense on their heels, unbalanced. And I thought that was just a good opportunity. First play, go to quick pass, kind of like an extended run. Cooper Kupp, boom, out of bounds, stops the clock. Let's go, hand it off. Hand it off on the second play. It's first down. We got a new set of downs right here.
Sure.
And so it just to put it in the air, to me, and put it in harm's way in a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a predictable situation, but you could tell.
Right. Yeah.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers expected pass right there.
Sure.
The way that they were playing defense, they expected pass. That's why those guys were up the field so quickly. Those defensive ends, they're up the field and they're in the pocket, wreaking havoc. They expected, whether it was alignment, whether it was a call at the line of scrimmage. Man, that thing is Zach Charbonnet, man. You get a couple body blows in there.
Sure.
While we're trying to get in field goal range and win the game. So, that's really the only, feedback.
Sure.
That I have from that last drive is I just thought, to start that drive with 2 straight passes, not sure I agree with that strategy.
Anders, how much do you think that has to do with maybe a lack of trust in Jason Myers there, where you think that maybe you do have to score a touchdown in that situation? Does that play a factor there?
Yeah, I don't know if it does, to be completely honest. I know he misses the field goal earlier in the game, but I still think Mike Macdonald, being the defensive-minded, a little bit more conservative coach than he is. And I know they went for an 4th down earlier as well. But that was 4th and 2 inside the red zone, and we were down. So I really it's a tie game. But I don't think it has a ton to do with it. I think it more has to do with how well Sam Darnold was playing.
Sure.
Trust him to make the plays, and it is really hard to nitpick at that point in time. It's more bad luck, in my opinion, than anything else. Again, I was in the stadium. I don't view the TV copy of everything. I can't see every player.
Sure.
Exactly. I agree with Turbo that you could definitely have at least thrown one more running play call in there, especially with multiple timeouts. And it's not like you struggled to run the whole way. So it's not completely out of the picture, but I think it's a lot to do with how well Sam Darnold was throwing the ball there. And they trusted him to make the play that you need to, maybe throw it away if you need to, kind of conserve those for when you absolutely need it closer. So to be honest, I think it's a tough place to be. It's weird because I've been pretty heavily critical on the play calling in certain moments of the Seahawks season this year, but I think today it felt a lot more like that else when it comes to play calling. Again, that play specifically.
So Seahawks.
Back to the future, these sunglasses too.
Yeah,
bro.
there you go. Oh, there we go. There we go.
There we go. You know what I'm saying? Put the celebrity status on us.
There we go. Yes, sir. Yes, beautiful. So Seahawks do give up the ball. The 49ers. The Buccaneers are in pretty good field goal position. They give up, and I think Mike Macdonald does a nice job using the timeouts there, putting in that situation. And as Turbo mentioned earlier, it's 3rd and 7. And they completely lose containment on an outside run there. Rob, that just can't happen, right?
No, I agree. It can't happen. That was, in a game that was as defensively as disappointing as it possibly could have been. That was the dagger. I mean, obviously, because if Seattle does have good contain there, it gets bottled up. They kick the field goal likely, but you still have enough time to actually do something with it. I mean, it's going to be 30 seconds or
Sure.
maybe it's only 20 seconds, but still, but to have that mistake there, again, I think that Rick Woolen understandably takes a lot of heat from a lot of Seahawks fans. But if he had made that mistake, then I think that, right now he'd be crucified. And the reality is I don't know that there is a lot of Seahawks fans out there. And again, I don't want to put all of the blame on any one player, especially if it is the backup cornerback at this point, a player in just his second season. But I believe, from my vantage point, having not watched the All 22, I think that it likely was Nehemiah Pritchett who was the player who could have been in a better position to, at minimum, force the back outside or push him back inside towards the rest of your teammates. But for him to be all the way off the ball, to me was fairly inexcusable. And I really think that's the biggest reason why that the Seahawks lost the game the way that they did in such a, after being such a battle, to lose it in such an easy way, to kind of just ultimately just piss this opportunity away. Sorry for my language here, but that's basically what it felt like. And so again, that makes it that much more of the gut punch of a loss in a game that was, as we talked about, as entertaining of a football game as you're ever going to see. To lose it like that just makes it that much more frustrating.
Turbo, is that just over aggressiveness? Is that a guy just trying to make a play, or is that just completely losing focus in that situation? Or again, maybe a combination of both?
Indiscipline.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you're a front seven player, D-line, linebacker, why are you letting the play get to Nehemiah Pritchett?
That's a great point.
Why are you even letting it get there when you know it's a run?
Yeah, have to be.
I'd rather get beat on a play action.
Sure.
Playing aggressive to the line of scrimmage for a run play.
Yeah.
Than letting that happen right there.
Sure.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. So it's on the front seven. It's on the front seven, and they're indisciplined in the fact that they got out physicaled on that particular play because it shouldn't even get to Pritchard. Shouldn't even get to him.
Yeah. That's the most frustrating thing to me. And it's just such a, if everyone does just their assignment, understood the assignment, again, as the kids used to say, you make that play. It's probably a 45-yard field goal. You've thrown the ball so well. You have such a weapon in JSN. You have Torrey Horton's ability to get down the field as well. I feel great about their chances of tying it up or even taking the lead in that situation. But because of several undisciplined plays, but in particular that one, that's why you end up going 3-2 instead of being 4-1. Really appreciate everyone joining us. We do this after every single game. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials. This is a heartbreaking loss, but I think that there's enough positive to feel pretty good about these upcoming weeks. But man, oh man, the difference between 4-1, the difference between 5-0, you're 2 plays away from being 5-0 now, guys, which is probably the most frustrating thing about it. But there's still plenty of time to make sure this is the successful season we want. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back next week. We'll also be back next week with a preview of, I believe, the Jaguars coming up this week. That'll be kind of an interesting one, making that trip to Jacksonville. Turbo, what's the trip to Jacksonville like?
I have no idea. The only time I ever went to Jacksonville was when I did an internship at Fanatics when my career was over.
So, wow. Okay.
It was a good trip.
Okay,
I never played in Duval. So,
gotcha.
We'll all be experiencing it for the first time.
Sounds great to me. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Wish it was a better result, but thanks again for joining the Seahawks Squad Show.